Hey guys, it's Ravenclaw Book Nerd. Happy Easter! Today I'm doing a review of Renegades by Marissa Meyer. This is the first of a two-book series where the second one is coming out in November 2018. Renegades has 552 pages. It took me 5 days to read, and it's fantasy. The general premise is that there are people with magical abilities called prodigies, and for a long time these people have been oppressed and feared. A guy named Ace Anarchy took over and created a group of prodigies called the Anarchists. The world fell into complete chaos, and the people that defeated Ace Anarchy and the Anarchists were called the Renegades. The Renegades end up being celebrated as heroes, while the Anarchists are forced into hiding. The story starts 10 years later to track these two teenagers, Nova and Adrian. Nova and Adrian are similar in a lot of ways in that they're both prodigies, so they both have magic powers, and they both have tragic pasts, and they both have secret identities. And they also have one fundamental difference in that Adrian is a renegade and Nova is an anarchist. Yeah, so I suggest this book to anyone who likes superhero stories, especially Marvel, DC, Avengers kind of stories, and also if you like action, romance, awesome battle scenes, secret identities, just superheroes in general and fantasy, this is definitely a book for you. I really like the diversity of the characters, the way that they have a lot of different races, they have different strengths, different weaknesses. I like Simon and Hugh and their relationship, so I really like the diversity in all of Marissa Meyer's books. She's really good at creating very diverse characters. Also, a lot of books have left me wishing that the characters had more backstory, and this book did not leave me waiting like that, because we got really good backstories for basically all of them, which is pretty good because you have sort of the superhero origin story aspect, so that's really cool. My copy of this book had little annotations from Marissa Meyer in one of the chapters. It is very clear that she ships them. Let me find it. Right here, because it gives you the chapter of Nova fighting the gargoyle, and she looks at Adrian several times, and every time Marissa draws a little heart next to Adrian's name, and it's really cute. Oscar and Ruby are going to be together, and they're going to be cute. The battle scenes were really awesome, and they were described really well. One of the things I found most interesting about this book is that I have mentioned before stories where the villain is very relatable and you can understand where they're coming from. And this just goes beyond that. This is, if there was a good and evil scale with like good at the top and evil at the bottom, there's the Renegades and the Anarchists would be basically on the same level. The Renegades were the ones that didn't like what Ace was doing and stopped him. So they were the ones that were portrayed as heroes, while the Anarchists were portrayed as villains. This brings us to kind of question the actual heroism of the Renegades, because what we learned at the end with Agent N and wanting to use Max to take away the powers of people who wouldn't work for them, that's a little bit not heroic. And also, the way that their trial thing is just completely publicity based. They're enjoying their public heroism way too much. And that brings me to a point that I noticed earlier today. Something Adrian said, take a fire elemental, for example. They could choose to burn down buildings, or they can choose to make s'mores. So you can use your power for good or evil. That's the thing. Most of the Renegades' powers you can use for good or evil, and I think the one that seems most evil of the Renegades' powers would probably be Max, and he's the one that they keep locked inside a glass room all the time. And if you think about the different powers of the anarchists, you have Nightmare, who can put people to sleep. You have Winston, who can basically possess children. You have Phobia, who can take the form of your worst fear. You have Cyanide, who can create poisons. And you have the Detonator, who can create bombs. You have Honey, who can control bees. These are all things that it would be very hard to use them for good. It's sort of showing that the Renegades are discriminating against the people who can't really specifically use their power for good. The Renegades kind of want the ability to use their powers for good, but that's it's not their fault if a person is born with a power that seems like it could only be used for evil. But the Renegades still don't want them, even if they have good intentions. Or the Renegades could use Agent N or whatever they're planning on them. Here on the inside cover, right at the top, it says, Secret Identities, Extraordinary Powers. She wants vengeance, he wants justice. See, the Renegades and the Anarchists are both fighting for the exact same thing for each of their groups, except that the Anarchists call it vengeance and the Renegades call it justice. I have a theory about Lady Indomitable, Adrian's mother, who they never really solved the mystery of how she died, because they know that she fell off a building, and they also know that she can fly, which means that she should not have fallen off a building. Page 549, Nova runs into Phobia, who quotes that note that they found with Lady Indomitable. He says, one cannot be brave who has no fear. And Nova says, you've said that before. And I know Nova wouldn't know this, but that made me start thinking, and now I have a theory about what actually happened to Lady Indomitable. On page 102, when Adrian is looking at that newspaper, it said there were no additional signs of foul play, which means that the only cause of death would have been her falling off a building. And also, Adrian said that her eyes had been open, her face contorted into a silent scream. Why would she have been screaming? Whoever went after Lady Indomitable would have been a villain, obviously, probably an anarchist, who people would assume that they had been killed on the Day of Triumph, but might not have been. Maybe because they've been hiding. And someone who can presumably kill without directly physically injuring their victims. The fact that she was screaming, and that shout out to fear in her note, one cannot be brave who has no fear. I think I know who is behind this. Phobia. We know that he can sense people's worst fears, and Nova said that Leroy had said that Phobia was the embodiment of fear. In the scene that the Renegades come to kick the anarchists out of the tunnel, there's page 363 where Phobia turns into a bunch of spiders, and then the person screams because they are presumably very scared of spiders, which means that Phobia can take the shape of someone's worst fear. The spiders is obviously a pretty easy thing to take the shape of, because it's a physical thing, but what if someone had a fear of falling? How would phobia embody a fear of falling? Phobia also doesn't have a specified age. He seems older than the rest of them, which means that he could have been old enough to be out and about at the time that Lady Indomitable was killed. So I think that's the answer. Let's take a quick look at the final scene where Ace Anarchy is there for some reason, and we don't really know why. Nova and the rest of the anarchists have been visiting this chamber for a while. It seems like it could be some sort of ghost. Is it some sort of like resurrection that they did with their powers? Is he actually alive? Or I had a strange thought about this that also has to do with phobia, because again, we don't know exactly how he would embody a fear that doesn't really take an actual form. But I think it's safe to say that a lot of people fear Ace Anarchy, or at least the Age of Anarchy in general. And I wonder if phobia, like, feeds on these fears. What if he could find enough people that were very afraid of Ace Anarchy, and he could feed on these fears of Ace and ultimately bring him back to life? So I had this list of questions slash things we didn't know, and I sort of got onto the topic of Max and never really got off it. So I just have a lot of questions about Max. If Max's parents were part of the Roaches gang, who also killed Nova's parents, I wonder if Max's parents are specifically the ones that went after Nova's family. Did Max's parents completely lose their powers before they like threw him off the bridge? Is the fact that Nova and Adrian passed out when they went into the quarantine, is that because everyone who goes into the quarantine with Max passes out when he's taking their powers? Or is it because Nova's power is to put people to sleep? If it was actually Nova's powers that made her pass out when she entered the quarantine, wouldn't they have made that connection to Nightmare? The fact that Max is building this extremely realistic scale model of the city, is there a practical reason that Max is building this? I can see why it could benefit them in terms of battle strategy. Also, what are they planning to do with Max's blood samples, tissue samples, bone samples, whatever they're doing, if they could just use Max in general? If they were going to take a specific person and take away their powers, they could just put them in the quarantine, right? Are they planning to find a way to specifically recreate Max's powers and like target them at a specific person in a way that wouldn't affect the Renegades? Are they trying to build an immunity for just the Renegades against Max's power? There are a lot of different things that it could be. Nova has a pretty good chance of starting over now that everyone thinks that Nightmare died. She could definitely keep working with the anarchists, or she could completely join the Renegades. And it's not entirely clear what she wants to do right now. I think she's starting to like the people in the Renegades, at least her team, with Dana and obviously Adrian, Oscar, Ruby, but she's not a big fan of the Authority with the Council and Chromium and Dreadwarden and everyone. So she's still definitely confused about her loyalties. Nova will end up with Adrian. Marissa definitely ships it. With the hearts around his name, she definitely ships it. Even the anarchists ship it. Oscar and Ruby are going to be together, I guarantee it. The Sentinel is going to be revealed to be Adrian, and the Renegades are going to be very angry at him for a while. And Nova will be angry at him for a while. And since the next book is called Arch Enemies, I'm going to assume that the title refers to Nova and Adrian. So I'm assuming there's going to be a big epic battle scene between Nova and Adrian, and then they're going to still end up together. Maybe the Renegades will kick them both out, and then they can run away together or something. Again, I don't think either of them are going to specifically pick a group, either the Renegades or the Anarchists. I think they're going to break away and form a different group or something. If the Renegades lose trust in Adrian because of the Sentinel, I think Adrian's going to lose trust in the Renegades when they use Agent N, partly because he cares about Max, and it's probably going to be something that puts Max in danger. I'm almost positive that phobia is going to be important, and I think there's going to be a big quest to go rescue the helmet of Ace Anarchy. So those are my predictions. This was longer than I expected. I really enjoyed this. I have so far read 8 books by Marissa Meyer, and I have enjoyed all of them. The other books are the Luna Chronicles series and Heartless, which is the backstory of the Queen of Hearts. I'm kind of sad that there's only going to be one more book, but we don't have to wait very long, only like 7 months? It's not that long. I really like Marissa Meyer as an author. She's good with the awesome, empowering female characters and diversity of the characters. She does that really well. Comment what you want to see from me. If you want certain book reviews, maybe book recommendations, different speed art or art tutorials maybe. I've never done those before, but I could. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed learning about my theories, because I definitely enjoyed making these theories about this book. I just enjoyed this book in general. Tell me your thoughts about this. Tell me if you agree, disagree with my theories. Tell me your own theories. And then tell me what you want to see in the comments. So thank you for watching, and I will definitely do more videos soon. Okay, bye.